Notre Dame is the team that is on the outside looking in. It is a team that I know Kirk Herbstreit joins us again now. Kirk, I've said I thought Notre Dame, if you just looked at the tape, if you just watched them play, one of the 5 best teams in college football right now. So, Kirk, let's start with you as Nick and Chris Fowler have joined us as well. What's your reaction to what you just saw?
Like we talked about before they released the rankings, I think, again, it became a debate between Miami and Alabama. I think they got the nod. I think Miami and Notre Dame, I think the head-to-head that Joey's talking about, one of the things that I think is interesting based on what we've always been trained is, and I know the Tuesday night show creates some drama, and it creates a lot of heartache and headache for a lot of people to understand, but they really don't feel that their rankings are true until they get all of the data in. And with BYU losing a second time convincingly, even though Miami didn't play, Notre Dame didn't play, that put BYU behind Miami. And now head-to-head matters because they're right next to each other. And even though they weren't on the field last week, it's hard to justify how can a team go by when neither team played. They would tell you in that room that we needed all the games played, all the games finished, and now we can see that Miami and Notre Dame were next to each other. And last week has nothing to do, in their minds, with this week and their final rankings. So it's not like the AP poll where every single week we follow and react to what happened. This is, to me, a mistake and misleading because of having these Tuesday night shows and having Miami so far away from Notre Dame. It's easy to say, guys, while they should have had Miami ahead of Notre Dame all along. Well, Miami had some 2 tough losses in games they controlled against SMU and Louisville and gave them both away. There had to be some kind of reaction from the committee and a punishment from the committee, but Miami did what they needed to do. They kept climbing the ladder, getting close enough. They did their job on the field, and eventually, even though they didn't play, Notre Dame didn't play, the committee felt that with BYU's second loss to Texas Tech in convincing fashion, they should go beneath Miami. And again, that's where the head-to-head mattered, and that's why they ended up flipping Miami and Notre Dame.
Kirk, I'm going to talk to Hunter Yurachek about this, but in their protocol for ranking teams, the head-to-head should have mattered. It doesn't mean it has to be exclusively the most important thing. It doesn't mean that they have to put Miami in front. All I'm saying is that I don't think we should create the idea that they couldn't really consider it until they were right beside each other. That's not really how their protocol is set up. I want to go to Nick here. Nick, you see how this has turned out. What's your reaction to this decision and how the playoff rankings look?
Right. I think the fact of the matter is all 3 of those teams should have gotten in and deserve the right to play, in the college football playoff. And for years now, we have kept tweaking the criteria of how we select teams to be in the playoff, whether it was a 2-team BCS, whether it's a 4-team playoff, and now 12-team playoff. But really, I think that you're going to have 2 teams in the playoff, no disrespect to the group of 5, that are nowhere near ranked as highly as some other teams that are much better than them. And I think that maybe something that we can learn from this, because, to me, this has got to be devastating for Notre Dame's team, not to get an opportunity to play in the playoffs, that we can learn something from this that will help us come up with a little better criteria of trying to make sure we get the best 12 teams in the playoff, and also address this whole idea of conference championship games and also the tiebreakers that get you in the conference championship game, and each conference has a significant impact, on what happens in this whole thing. So I don't think there was a good answer for all this. I'm happy for the teams that got in, and I think the committee did a really good job. I just think there was one team left out that I just don't think should have been left out some kind of way, but there was no way around it.
To Nick's point, just to illustrate that, Miami lost out on a tiebreaker, 5-way tie for second place in the ACC. Had they played in the ACC championship game, since they were the highest ranked team, they would have either won their way in, it would have created another at-large spot instead of having 2 teams from the group of 5 if they had won, or they would have lost and we wouldn't have had this controversy. Chris Fowler with us now. Chris, you've watched this for years. We've both covered this sport a long time. I think this is probably as controversial and difficult a decision as we've had in the entire playoff era.
I agree, Rece. This is a bracket that's going to be talked about forever, really. And not just because Notre Dame got excluded, but because of the framework that created the choices the committee had to make. And Nick talks about tweaks. There was a tweak after last season, what people didn't like about it. There's going to be something more than a tweak, I think, going forward, because all of a sudden, inclusivity, which most people in the sport think is a pretty good idea, even Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the deepest conference, thinks that you can't have group of 5 conferences play and have it mean absolutely nothing the entire season if there's not a possibility of getting in the CFP. So inclusivity sounds good until teams like Notre Dame and Texas and Vanderbilt get squeezed out. Then people have a serious problem with it. But this is one we're going to talk about for a long, long time. If you're Notre Dame, you're crushed. They were worried about this. I know they projected confidence. There was a lot of unease on the part of Marcus Freeman and others because they saw them drop last week, and now in consecutive weeks without playing, they have dropped in the rankings, and it ends up costing them despite a 10-game winning streak to finish the season. Having said that, I have no problem with Miami getting in based on a head-to-head, even though it was early in the season. They won that game at the line of scrimmage, held perhaps the best player in the sport, Jeremiah Love, who could win the Heisman, will certainly be there as a finalist in New York on Saturday, to 33 yards on 10 carries. So that was real. It was a late field goal that won it, but it still matters, and I think has to matter, or there's no incentive to schedule any kind of meaningful non-conference game. That's not the committee's job to protect that, or the committee's job to protect, with a sentimental eye, conference championship games, but those are also in danger, as we know, going forward.
You know, we said on game day Saturday, Roy Kramer, who was the architect of the SEC championship game, just passed away over this past weekend. It's one of his greatest contributions to the sport, but so much has changed. Maybe that's about to change as well because of these ramifications. Sometimes there's more risk involved than reward. Nick, what's your reaction to all of this?
Well, there's one thing I wanted to add, and Chris kind of made it a point about the tweaking in the future. You have 2 teams that are getting in the playoffs evaluated on a whole different set of criteria based on, 5 conference championships, the highest 5 conference championships getting in. And I think some kind of way we've got to bring that to balance, that we shouldn't be evaluating teams in the playoff with a different set of criteria, which is definitely the case the way it had to be done this year, the way things worked out.
And conferences, in many respects, aren't even really conferences anymore. They're sort of scheduling conglomerates or associations as well. Kirk, as you've looked at this, had a few more minutes to think about it, what else are you thinking in terms of this decision, potentially having thresholds for conference champions to get automatic bids? What are your thoughts?
I think Chris and Coach bring up a couple really good points. JMU and Tulane getting in, I don't think anybody has a problem with a group of 5 teams getting in. I do think that it would be great if there was some kind of ceiling for them to have to, or some kind of barometer for them to have to get up to be able to qualify to get in. Because you do, at the end of the day, what they told us at the beginning of this is we want the best 12 teams in this. And I'm not saying JMU and Tulane won't prove to maybe be some of the 12 teams, but we have Notre Dame and Vandy and Texas sitting at home in the years that they had and what they went through this year. It'd be great if we had 16 teams. Maybe that's the next answer. Let's get this thing up to 16 teams and see what we can do. But I think at the end of the day, conference championships, when you look at Alabama and you look at Notre Dame, having to play that extra game for Alabama, the way that game was looking, 21-0, which direction was this going to be an embarrassment for Alabama? I don't know. Maybe that would have been different, but playing in that extra game, looking at what Notre Dame had been through, I think they played 4 teams, Power 4 teams with 4-8 record or worse. As they looked at them side by side, I think playing in that bonus game, end of the day, did not hurt Bama, and they didn't want to set that precedent. I think Greg mentioned that earlier.
Kirk, that's interesting. We brought this up on game day Saturday, that if you looked at the paper, the data, the metrics, you probably favored Alabama and Oklahoma for that matter. And maybe if you watched the tape, you leaned a little bit more to Notre Dame and Miami in terms of the way they've looked in recent days. Guys, thanks. We'll keep an eye on this. Of course, all these guys will be heavily involved in the college football playoff once we start playing. But until we start playing, there's still some time to break all of this down. I think it's a really good concept to have thresholds for everybody to meet, whether that's ranking, whether that's computer metric or something, because you have teams that are going to be ranked near the bottom of the rankings that are displacing teams higher. Now, that may be okay a little bit. I don't know if it's top 20, if it's top 16, if it's top 12. but it seems like some type of threshold is probably what's going to happen in the future.
It does, because we tried to create an exception to include the group of 5. And I think to your point earlier, Joy, we have teams on the sideline that absolutely could win a championship right now. No one in America, aside from JMU or Tulane, think that JMU or Tulane can win a championship this year. Like, that's the matter of fact. But they're in it because we had to include them based on the parameters that we were given. And I think that's going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. I don't know what those thresholds could be, but we're trying to include teams to make them a part of this, when I think everyone knows that, yeah, they're good, but can they play with the big boys on a year in and year out? I don't know if that's the case, and I think that's what's going to rub Notre Dame, Texas, and Vanderbilt, because they could absolutely get hot and win it this season.
I agree with you, and I don't think I have as big a problem with JMU and Tulane getting in as a lot of people will. Do we believe they could win it? Absolutely not. I think they should be included. I don't know what the fix is to make people feel better, but in a season, and this is the first time we've seen this, the first time it's happened where 2 of them got in.
Right.
And so in this season, they got in. I'm happy for JMU. I'm happy for Tulane, and I'm okay with that. The big boys had their opportunities. You always look back through these seasons. We've all done it. We've all played. And you look back in your season and say, man, we wouldn't have lost that game right there.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
If we didn't get knocked off right here, we wouldn't be in this conversation. Handle your business, and we're not talking about JMU and Tulane getting in. They got in. That's how it is. We'll tweak it. I don't know what the fix is.
Well, you know, the thing is, I do want to point out that I'm talking about best practice for the future. Under the current rules, I've got zero problem.
Yeah,
with Tulane.
absolutely.
No problem whatsoever. The question becomes, is this best practice? Our conference championship game
Totally
best
fair.
practice anymore?
I think one thing we can do to just immediately fix it is take a good deep dive into tiebreaker scenarios for all these conference championship games.
Yeah.
Because guess what? If Miami right now is playing as a conference champion participant, and they win that game last night against Virginia, we don't have this conversation. Notre Dame's in too, and we don't have JMU, which to me I think would make some sense. That's what we got to fix first. We have bloated conferences. We have 18 teams in the Big Ten. It worked out this year in the Big Ten. The 2 best teams were playing in the conference championship game. Was that the case in the SEC? Maybe, maybe not. Was it the case in the ACC? Absolutely not. Was it the case in the Big 12 this year? Yes. Yeah. I think we need to look at how we're sending teams to the conference championship before we start to rip up the conference championship automatic berth. Because if we can just get the 2 best teams that were ranked from a metric standpoint, from a BCS standpoint, use the computers, I don't care, use Sagarin ratings, I could care less. Take the 2 best teams in every conference, rank them accordingly, and those top 2 are the ones that are playing for the title, as opposed to all these confusing tiebreaker scenarios.
You know, again, too, congratulations to Duke. They get the trophy.
Absolutely.
But a 5-loss team being in your conference championship game created a lot of this. Herbie, my friend Herbie was waving his finger over there. Herbie, you wanted something you wanted to add here right quick before we talk to Hunter Yurachek and look at a bracket here?
Yeah, I love hearing when you guys trying to spin this forward, like what the answer is. And I think what all of us want is, whether it's 12 or hopefully eventually it gets up to 16, is just whether it's computers and committee, a mixture of that, whatever the answer is. I just think at the end of the day, you rank them, whatever their conference affiliation is, throw that out, have 5 automatic qualifiers, and then from after that, just whatever it is, 1 to 16. If you get up into that ranking, you're in. If you're outside of it, you're out. There's no, what about this? Should we get this? It's just whatever the ranking is. That would be a beautiful future. Just to go back to what Coach Saban said, we all just want the best teams in. And however we get there subjectively, like I said, if it's a mixture of committee with computers, Sagarin ratings, whatever it is, just come up with a way to just rank them and not worry about, well, we've already got too many from this conference. We don't have enough from this conference. Whatever the rankings are, just spit it out, play it, and we all get what we really want, which the best teams in. If it's group of 5, great. If it's not, too bad. And let's just rank the teams and play the best teams.
All right, I mean, it's a fair point for the future, but, you know, the good thing is at some point in this show, we're going to just put this to the side, get fired up about the games. We've still got some ground to cover in that regard, but right now, want to show you how the games are set up and where the bowl games will be.
We have times.
There you go. We got times, and you've got other opportunities as well. So I'm going to go up, walk up a little bit closer so my old eyes can see these things. You've got Oregon and James Madison. That will be on Saturday night, 7:30 Eastern time. The first game of the playoff will be Alabama and Oklahoma at 8 o'clock Eastern time, the 8-9 matchup. Then the noon game on ESPN ABC and College Game Day scheduled to be there as well will be Miami and Texas A&M. That will be on ESPN and ABC. And then the other game that will be on TNT, ESPN produced. Your familiar announcers there, Tulane and Ole Miss in the rematch. That will be the afternoon game on Saturday, December 20th. So that's how it looks. You see the bowl game set up as well. Orange Bowl for Texas Tech, Rose for Indiana, Sugar for Georgia, and the Cotton for Ohio State. And you see how the bracket goes, awaiting the winners. And there are some fascinating potential second round matchup.
You want this, you got that.